Kristin Hannah, you are a New York Times bestselling author. You've had so many wonderful novels come out, including most recently The Great Alone and The Nightingale. But I'm not sure everyone realizes you live right here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest.
I'm an island girl, and I always have, and I find that I write best when I can see the water.
23 published novels, but your career started off in a very different way.
I began as a lawyer.
So is it true that you actually handwrite everything out in like longhand cursive?
I started, with the yellow legal pad so that I could write on my deck on a beautiful day. To really get into a flow for me where the story's really flowing, I need to just write and write and write.
Your most recent work, The Great Alone, is set in Alaska with a little splash of Seattle.
There's nothing I like better than introducing not only the Pacific Northwest, but my Pacific Northwest to readers. Alaska's a little different. Alaska I have a very strong family connection to. My family owns a sport fishing lodge in Alaska called the Great Alaska Adventure Lodge. It is such a remarkable, spectacular landscape. It is full of really unique, really memorable individuals.
Can you explain a little bit what it's about?
The Great Alone is a story set in the early 1970s in Alaska, and it's about a family, and the father is suffering from undiagnosed PTSD from the Vietnam War, and he decides that the best way to save his family and keep them together and give them a good life is for them to go to Alaska and live off the grid. And as the darkness closes in, the father's demons from the war come out more and more, and the wife and daughter find themselves sort of fighting for their lives on many fronts.
Let's talk about The Nightingale. Tell us about it and what inspired you.
The Nightingale was such an interesting book. It was kind of a departure for me when I first started writing it. I came across stories of French women who had helped downed airmen get out of occupied France during World War II. And as I read these stories, I was just so amazed by the courage and, the moxie of these women. I read about the women who hid Jewish babies and who helped get Jewish children out of France. And the more I read, the more I wanted to write this book. And the angrier I became that the stories of these women's heroism had been lost. And so I just thought, okay, I've waited a really long time. No one else has written this story. So I'm just going to dive in.
I read that it's being made into a major motion picture with a couple of pretty well-known stars.
Yes, we have Dakota Fanning and her sister Elle Fanning, which is really cool because, sisters playing sisters. And it's very exciting.
The characters you created are sisters, and they're both heroines, I would say, but in very different ways.
Yeah, that was really sort of the crux of this book.
So when are we going to be able to watch this beautiful movie?
Well, it was supposed to come out in December of 20, but it has been pushed back a year to December of 21. So I will be first in line, and you can come with me.
I am so there. We also need to talk about Firefly Lane.
That one is a Netflix series coming this fall. Firefly Lane is the book that is most personal to me. It most closely mirrors my own life. This is two best friends who meet in Snohomish, which is where I grew up, in 1970, and become best friends as girls, go to the UW together, start in TV news together, and sort of live their whole lives here in Seattle.
You've got some big names in this one too.
Sarah Chalk from Scrubs fame is playing Kate, and Katherine Heigl from Grey's Anatomy is playing sort of larger than life Tully. It's just an amazing cast, and it's really obvious in watching them that they adored each other and that they had a really fun time, shooting this.
Can you tell us anything about what you're working on now?
I can tell you that I just finished the book that's going to be coming out in early 21. I guess I would call her an indomitable woman fighting to survive through a very difficult time in American history.
Kristin, Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today.